let's start, shall we? So welcome to everyone, and also welcome to those joining us online. Welcome to UNSW Built Environment. My name is Risa Yosia Sunindio, Associate Professor and Deputy Head of School Research. So at Built Environment, our vision is to reshape built environments to improve life for all. So this vision governs the way we educate our students, making sure that they contribute to society. It governs the way we do our research, because we want our research to be impactful. And it guides the way we engage our external stakeholders, especially again the community and also our industry partners. So at UNSW Built Environment and also the City Futures Research Center, we are ranked number 35 in the world in terms of architecture and built environment, and our performance is supported by our strong research performance. So we obtained, for example, $13 million in grant funding this year, and we are home to 7 world's top 2% scientists as well. So there are 7 disciplines in UNSW Built Environment. As you can see there, we have architecture, interior architecture, landscape architecture, city planning, industrial design, computational design, and construction management and property. So therefore, we do interdisciplinary research. But then our research, in a sense, can be categorized into 3 groups: digital and smart built environments, healthy and equitable built environments, and sustainable built environments. So those are our research strengths. So just quickly, Impact at BE is our talk series to showcase the societal impact of our research. So this talk particularly is number 8 in the series, and you can see the previous 7 talks on the screen. Again, we always collaborate with the community and our industry partners in delivering these talks. And today's talk on a tale of ordinary advocacy for equitable walkability is a wonderful example to show again the research that we do and how we contribute to improve the society out there. Remember the societal impact of our research. So therefore, I would like to thank and welcome as well Professor Susan Thompson, Giselle, and the wonderful Dr. Nyota, and also Jennifer for coming today and for sharing your insights. Again, this kind of research, when it's done well in collaboration with the community and also with the industry partner, can make a difference to improve people's everyday lives. And this is very important to make our cities and our buildings more equitable. I think that's all for me. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Professor Susan Thompson. Thank you, and please give them a warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Risa. And it's a great pleasure to be here and to be presenting our work today. I would firstly like to acknowledge the traditional owners of our vast continent and their legacy of stewardship of place. These images are of an Indigenous artwork entitled Breathe, and it's an Indigenous artwork by artists Madison Gibbs and Nicole Monks. It's located in Yeo Park, Ashfield, and it celebrates the survival and resilience of the Gadigal and Wangal people. And I really love this particular artwork, and I wish to use that to acknowledge country and pay my respects. Well, hello to everyone and a very warm welcome. And Lisa's already done a little bit of introduction, so you know who I am. I guess I'm the academic host in a sense for today's presentation. And the topic that we're talking about today is how we support local communities, in this case, to achieve a walkable local environment for health and well-being, which is indeed something that perhaps most of us just take for granted. In part, the presentation that we're going to be talking about is how we've used academic research for positive change to improve people's everyday lives. It's also about how stakeholders look to academic researchers to assist their advocacy activities. And in turn, and I think this is really, really important for us academics, how we can respond and how we need to listen to stakeholders. And that's very much what we will be doing today in this presentation. It demonstrates how academic research, no matter how big or small a project, funded or not, can have real-world impacts. So it's perhaps a little bit different to some of the other BE at Impact talks. Now, already, I'm sure you've read their amazing bios, but our other speakers, Giselle Masnage and her beautiful guide dog, Mayota. I've known Giselle for quite some years, only recently met Mayota, who is guiding and with Giselle now, and as she describes Mayota in her bio, her bestie. The other speaker is Jennifer Moon, and Jennifer is from the NGO Stakeholder Guide Dogs organisation, New South Wales ACT, and Jennifer is a social change advocate. So we're going to share the delivery of today's presentation, and we're going to start first up with an overview of the issue. Then we'll be going through presenting just very briefly some of the research and practice evidence, but particularly emphasising much of the work of guide dogs and understandings around the vexed issue of what's up in front of you at the moment, these pedestrian crossings that are flush and have some quite big problems for those who are blind and those with low vision. So we're going to really drill down into that particular issue. And then we'll be summing up the importance and the impact. Now I'm now going to hand over to Giselle and Mayota to tell us about the issue. And Giselle will stay seated, and I'm going to show some slides to you as Giselle talks, and we've sort of navigated these slides, so I won't describe the slides, Giselle, but you'll know what they are. I'll just give you the microphone.
Thank you, Susan. And thank you everyone for coming, and thank you to the faculty for this opportunity to address this issue today with you. I'm sitting down because I want to have a conversation with you rather than talk at you, and because I feel more comfortable doing that. Mayota down there is my bestie. There's a long story to her name and a short story. The short story is that her name means star in the Swahili language. Star as like a guiding star in the sky. The long story you'll get if you talk to me afterwards. But yeah, the issue. So I moved into Ashfield in a retirement village. My father was alive at the time, so I moved with him, and then he passed away. But I've been living in Ashfield in the inner west for 14 years now. And the first thing I noticed is that where I was in a block surrounded by busy streets and with no pedestrian crossings whatsoever. Like they were, if I wanted to go to walk to Somerville, or if I wanted to walk to Ashfield, even if I wanted to walk to your park, where that beautiful tribute is to the Aboriginal memorial that Susan showed you, all of those things require me to cross streets where there are no pedestrian crossings, no markings, nothing. And so the first thing I did was to contact Ashfield Council, ask them if they had an access committee, and publicly invited myself to join the access committee. And for the last 14 years, we have been campaigning with the residents at the village to get a crossing. We've only got the foundation for our first crossing just this week, after 14 years. And so the issue for me is that this blocks me from being able to walk. I love to walk, and I need to walk for my health. This is true, but healthy environments it's health, it's your well-being, It's, you know, restful for the mind, and it's also from a practical point of view, just to get anywhere. If I want to go to a GP, if I want to go to the shops, if I want to go to the chemist. Nyota, my beautiful guide dog, and before her, my guide dog, D'Artagnan, and before him, Katie. These dogs are amazing, and they could take me. They can take me we can learn together to go to any shops, any destination, to the station, get on the train. I love to go to the city, I love to go to the WEA, I love to go to swimming, so they can take me to the aquatic center, and they can wait for me while I do my swimming. These amazing dogs can do this, but what they can't do is tell you when it's safe to cross the road. And maybe many people think that, yes, the dog will come. I read something yesterday online, this morning, and this blogger saying that the dogs are amazing. They can press the pedestrian button, and then when you get to a shop, the dog can pay the shop assistant. I'm saying, no, where did you get that information from? You know? So that's not real life. The real life is the dogs are amazing. They know about 1,000 words. You know, some say 600 to 1,000. They certainly know a lot of words about food and all that. But they know, and I only have to tell her we're going to the chemist today, and she'll know where to go. But when we come to a street, what they do is they go to the curb ramp. So the curb ramp is that ramp that goes from the footpath down to the street, and then you cross the street, and then you're back up the ramp, and then you know you're back on the safety of the footpath. What's happening now is that they're removing the curb ramps and making these flush finish crossings, even when they are putting pedestrian crossings now, even those with so if it's a traffic light, the dog will take you to the traffic light pole. I press the button, not the dog, I press the button, and then they take me back to the curb ramp. We wait until we hear the tack, 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 tack. If it's a zebra crossing, I wait to kind of get a feeling for the traffic flow, then I cross. And I'm on the zebra crossing, the dog will take me across, right? But they can't tell you, oh, don't cross, ma'am, because, you know, there's a car coming. If there's a car coming and the car is virtually in front of you, then yes, they will stop. And then you say to the dog, okay, when you can, and then you try and listen up, the car is no longer in front of you, and then cross. But they can't tell you if a car is at a distance and is too close for you to cross. They can't tell you that. And now with those flush crossings, the problem is, so flush crossings are where you might have seen them in a lot of places. The footpath and the roadway are one, at the same level. So I can't tell.
I'm just showing them the image of
Okay.
you on a Tickle Street.
Okay, so this is Tickle Street and Tickle. And so there's two crossings there at that school. There's one which is perfect. It's got a slope going down, Nyota stops, and then we cross, and then we go back up. And then you go around the corner, and there's this crossing that's completely flushed, and she can never pick it up. She can never stop. So she keeps going, and I'm on the roadway. Right? And so imagine how dangerous it is. Not only, especially today, when they have these new cars, which are the silent cars, and you're meant to hear something if they're traveling at a certain speed and so on. But obviously, no, not when there's a plane flying overhead, and not when there's somebody mowing their lawn there, and not when some children at the school are screaming their heads off because it's recess time. So no, you can't always hear the cars, and if you can't tell when you're on the roadway, it's extremely dangerous. So this has been the issue, and then we've had a campaign to try and address this. So for the last 14 years, we've been battling. And the residents where I live have been wonderful. They've all got stuck into it. And lately, in the last two years, we've been very lucky to get some responses. One councillor in particular, Jessica D'Arienzo, and she just got re-elected, which was fantastic, has been really active. So they started putting up motions at the council, I started talking at the council, and then this is where it comes into this, what we're doing now, is that my eye specialist did a submission, And he went around after he's a surgeon as well, and after his clinic, he was so keen to understood my situation. After his surgery, eye surgery, he used to go around Ashfield taking photos and did a submission. And then Suzanne came into it, so from our academic background, talking about walkability and health, and she put in a submission. My GP put in a submission, and then guide dogs, of course, put in a submission. So then we started getting heard, but it took 14 years. And now we're facing the double edge. So we're getting the crossings, we're getting 11 new crossings, which would allow me to walk to Ashfield, to Summerhill, to the park. The catalyst in that also, we were looking for something to go to the media. And about 2 years ago, we got news that a new park was opening up in Ashfield, Lewis Herman Reserve. Thank you for the thing there. And it was amazing because they said,
this is the new park.
There's a nursing home next to it for people with dementia, for children. It's fully accessible, they said, right? And I said, yeah, well, for me to get to that park, I have to cross Queen Street. There's no crossing. It's really busy road. I have to cross Clissold Street, which is really busy, and there's no crossing. And then other people would have to cross another Holden Street, which is really busy, and none of those have crossings, right? So we made that the focus of our campaign. And the residents of the village, there's a little workshop, like a men's shed, where they make things and they fix things for the residents. And so they made this little stop sign for men. We carried it everywhere. Every meeting we carried the stop sign, as a symbol of stopping the traffic. And so we started getting a bit of traction, a bit of media interest, City Hub article, and from there everything. But what was critical, and I mean that Susan and the other professional people and guide dogs, got involved, was that academic and professional expert involvement, because the council would not listen to me, no matter how I talked about how I need to get there with my guide dog, I need to travel. It was the academic and professional expertise and the other experts that made the difference for us. And so maybe that's a segue for you, Susan.
All right. Well, I probably didn't change the slides as seamlessly as I could have. Clearly not a flash crossing. But that slide just shows the media release that Giselle prepared and was published in the City Hub with much of the expert evidence as well. And there's different images there from the campaign at various meetings, including quite a well-attended stakeholder workshop by the council, and that's the sticky notes that you can see in that particular image. So where did perhaps the research evidence from my point of view as the academic on the team? Well, first up, I was able to bring many years of research and, importantly, for a built environment, our practice evidence to show how important where we live, how we get around is in supporting people's health and well-being. And on this slide, I just got a selection of different work that I've been involved in for, since the early 2000s and a bit before, starting with community gardens work, research on programs around community gardens, and then there was the HBEP, which stands for the Healthy Built Environments Program, that was funded here at UNSW, and we were able to really help planners and other built environment professionals understand the importance of the built environment for health. And there are many outcomes from that, academic, specific academic research outcomes, but also practice outcomes. And we also did a lot of education during that sort of advocacy work combined with the research. And I mean, in some respects, that's what we've been embarking on here today, but also in the work that we've been doing together. And these are just some examples on the slide of some of the education work, the advocacy work, and you can see Giselle up there actually with D'Artagnan, her former guide dog, on a crossing, about to cross the road, and this was quite some years ago. As she said, this issue has been going on for a long time. I guess my evidence in that sense for this work draws on this wide body of research and education. And it's not from a specifically funded research project, and I think that's really important. So this then led to the current problem and the issue around getting access to the park. So the council made this great announcement opening this new park, and Giselle, as she's already described, some of her advocacy work, together with other experts, I prepared a statement around supporting healthy ageing and how the built environment plays a role in that. Drew on the research that we've done for quite some time, and also show to the council that local government initiatives, guidelines out there are highly relevant. So we're able to bring to their attention other research outside our research, but also other practice evidence and guidelines and tools. And from that sort of position of being, an expert, although I often wonder how expert we are, but in terms of the importance of being at the table, saying in a stakeholder situation like this that we are expert academics and presenting our credentials in underpinning the evidence that we're communicating. And in terms of that, I'm going to hand over to Jennifer now, who's going to talk about the work that she's been doing in relation to guide dogs and the issue of evidence and practice and her amazing initiatives. So Jennifer, thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Just stating, you're probably wondering, what do we do at guide dogs? We do dogs, yes, but a lot of the work that we do involves people who are blind, have low vision. That could be using long canes, using their residual vision, but a lot of it is getting their skills up that they can travel out and about in the community to be independent, as you heard from Giselle, catching public transport, crossing roads, doing all those sorts of things. And up front, yes, as beautiful as our guide dogs are, they are not magic carpet rides. You don't just hop on and say, take me to uni. You have to know where you are, you have to know where you're going, and it's very much a team effort. So just starting with, I guess, what has been raised today certainly is not new to us. We know that it's a problem, and it's not just in Ashfield at this particular park, it is occurring all across Australia. So this is based on, we've been doing some longitudinal studies since, started 2010, then 2015. We were meant to do one in 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020. So this latest research was somewhat held up. But with this one, it was a Guide Dog Australia survey. We asked lots of questions, but this area which I'm talking about today was in relation to footpath challenges and urban design. And definitely this issue over what we would refer to as eliminating the traditional clues that people use in order to travel around the community. And that is talking about curb ramps and road crossings and gutters and things that when you're blind, that's what you're relying on in order to get from A to B. And now this urban design, as I said, is actually removing those clues and making it incredibly difficult. And what is being put in place does not work. And that's why it's so good to be here today to talk to planners and designers to educate over this issue. And this is also what came out of the research, is that we're at a critical state that we need to be able to advocate very, very urgently for our stakeholders, because they're actually being, I guess, their inclusion in the community is actually, they're being excluded from the community because they no longer feel safe to get out and participate. So just with a room of academics, let's talk about that research methodology. It was actually conducted by EY Sweeney. We did a combination of online, bearing in mind too when people are blind and have low vision, using computer skills, particularly with older people, that may not be their forte, so we definitely offered telephone options as well, and a combination of qualitative as well as quantitative questions. Overall, 622 participants across Australia, which gave us a very good level of validity and reliability. And the age range was from 18 plus through to, I'm going to say not to the end, to the older people. And a combination too, as what you would expect, I guess, with the people that we work with, people who are blind as proportion, but most people have some residual vision with low vision. And again, that's why whenever I get the chance to talk to designers about luminance contrast, how important luminance contrast is, because that gets to the majority of the population, more so than using tactile ground surface indicators as tactile only. Again, with the research, it was the questions were based on in your last 2 years. So we were looking at 2021, 2022. Again, just a bit of a snapshot of where the participants came from, and predominantly, judging by this, it was the east coast of Australia. And here is our age range, as I said, from 18 plus through to 65 plus. A really good split of male and female, and a 60-40 split between metropolitan and regional participants. But the overall aspect from it, which is probably we're not surprised at all, that people who are blind, have low vision, have numerous challenges accessing the community and public spaces, and this greatly impacts their confidence and their ability to participate in community. Interestingly, respondents said that if the urban design was improved and if we could help with education and awareness of these needs, they felt that would help mitigate a lot of the issues. So I stand here today going, I'm glad that we're starting the education, because without us telling you, you're probably not at all aware that this is a problem. So just with the footpath challenges, just a bit of a snapshot here of what are the most common issues that they're facing. Overhanging branches, so anybody in the room, if you've got a tree that's hanging over your footpath right now, go home and snip it back, because that's a problem. Mainly because, again, the cane just goes straight underneath and you're hitting things at what we call at head height. Guide dogs are taught to go around, but again, on a wet day, branches might fall down much lower. And I'm sure, Giselle, you've had a bit of a face wash at times by some wet leaves on a tree. Yes. New works in construction, when they're not barricaded, I'm talking perhaps to construction areas, to be aware that again, making sure that that whole area is mitigated with to reduce hazards. Interestingly here, e-scooters, e-bikes, micro-mobility, 49%, shared paths, 46%, outdoor dining and furniture, good displays, so street furniture, good selling items on the footpath, parked cars, shared roads, rubbish bins, A-frame boards, and this HVMB, anybody want to have a crack at what that one is? Hostile vehicle mitigating bollards. So when we're putting bollards now onto footpaths, because of the issue of trying to keep cars off the footpath, but by doing so we're creating hazards into the footpath, crowd protection bollards. But out of that list was this bit here where we talked about the e-scooters, the shared paths, the shared roads, and the hostile vehicle mitigating bollards. These items did not appear in 2015. So from 2015 to now, look what's happening. And I guess in some ways that we feel like, did we leave it, I guess, with our stakeholders, because it was so long between surveys, that we haven't caught this quick enough, because now it's getting proliferated. These designs are getting proliferated, and we haven't had the chance to get out there to say we have to stop doing this because they're not working. So just quickly running through what some of them are. I'm sure you're all very familiar with our shared paths, shared roads, and the flush finish. So looking at the shared paths, and particularly with active transport, we're certainly not against active transport, but the design has to work to allow people who are blind, who have low vision, using these paths to feel safe amongst other vehicles, or bikes or scooters or whatever, zipping up and around them at speed. The shared road and zones and spaces, this one is really problematic. So on the screen is here at Lane Cove, where the whole idea of a shared zone, as I'm sure you're very familiar with, is that you do have this sense of confusion. It is designed in a way that you have removed curb ramps, you have removed gutters, It is reliant on the driver in particular and the pedestrian making eye contact about who has the right of way and who has the safety. How does that work for somebody who cannot see? And because there's no definite shoreline, there is no direct path for someone who's blind to actually navigate the space. The other element is because you have to travel through there at 10 kilometres, with our e-vehicles, you are not hearing them at all. So that's our other issue that's there as well. Our at-grade crossing, within the questions that we asked, we did ask this one specific question because we knew this was causing problems. So we did say, how do you rate your confidence when you cross a road that is level or at grade, where the footpath and the road are the same? Even we were alarmed at this. 4 in every 5 persons said that they lacked confidence. They were shouting at us, this does not work. And interestingly, once you got into the higher age bracket, this was even more prominent. So again, as I'm sure you're quite aware too, that ageing often causes low vision or blindness. So we know that that mix is causing problems. And on the images here, just showing the first image on the left with this at-grade crossing. If you were approaching from this side to move across, again, how do you know that you've moved from the footpath across the path of travel with the car? And this new design, this continuous footpath. So this is the one we're actually trying to get our heads around, because it's a whole reframing of a concept of crossing a road. So we would still teach people, you know, you are crossing this particular road, this helps with orientation. But if you speak to the road authorities, they're saying you're not crossing a road, you're continuing on a footpath. So for us who have vision, we can see that we can continue on a footpath. Let's say if there was a quiet Tesla coming around and wanting to cross our path, we still have the decision to say whether that is safe or not, because our vision is telling us, oh, that Tesla's a bit too fast, I better stop and let it come across my path. For someone who's blind, they would just continue on because they're not getting any clues that they are in fact crossing over an area where cars can come across their path of travel. So this is a real issue because, again, this is getting proliferated and it's not giving any clues to someone who's blind what's going on. Perhaps even worse, what we call our flush finish road crossing. So this is at light controlled intersections. I'm sure you're all familiar with George Street in Sydney and looking at Church Street in Parramatta. So gutters have been removed, curb ramps have been removed. We are now crossing over from a footpath into a path of many cars and light rail vehicles as well. And all we've got is a 5mm profile of a tactile indicator to say to you, stop. Stop and make your decision to know if it's safe. I put to all of you now, if I got you to close your eyes and you navigate this space and you have to rely on 5mm to tell you to stop, how safe would you feel? How confident would you feel to navigate this area? It's really not appropriate. So it comes back to, well, how come it keeps happening? And it comes down to compliance. So according to Australian standards, if you have a carriageway and a footpath that's level, you just put down warning tactile indicators. Tick, we've achieved it. And this is the problem, because I'm just going to go to this image first. Again, this is what that standard, that clause has created. An environment that is so incredibly unsafe for people who are blind, have low vision to navigate, and yet it's still compliant. So we go back to when we try to speak with and try to advocate for change, and these are the responses. Can't you train your dogs better? If this doesn't tell you the problem is with the person rather than the design, that's a problem. It's compliant, as I've just said, it sits there in Australian standards. And then the other bit, how many people does this affect? As in, if it's only affecting a smaller proportion of the community, is it really an issue? It's a major issue. So, a few other things just to make I'm sure you're all very familiar with tactile ground surface indicators. So just to let you know, from people who teach people how to use them, 1, the warning tactile ground surface indicators alone are not sufficient to provide safety for somebody who's blind or has low vision. So do not think you can put them down and that will be the solution. They should never be the only clue. They are the last clue in amongst other environmental elements that gives you that certification that you're at the right place and that you need to make your decision. And the other point, even if they are installed, it doesn't mean to say, one, they're detected, and two, that they may be followed if we're talking about directional indicators. So again, back to a room of planners and designers. If you design your environment better, we should be able to design out tactile ground surface indicators. Your design is crucial, and your design to be intuitive, to allow people who are blind, to have low vision, to navigate, comes through your design, not through tactiles. The other thing to consider too is cognitive load. So for someone who's blind to navigate the community, it takes a lot of effort to actually interpret things and work out where you are. And again, the more you can make the environment safer, the more energy they will have in order to move around from A to B. So thinking about footpath congestion, thinking about uneven footpaths and footpath challenges, we need to make sure our footpaths and our communities are safe. With also the rapid uptake of electric vehicles is only making it more difficult out there, and that's including our e-buses, our e-cars and our micro-mobility devices. Good news though, mandated AVAS, acoustic vehicle alerting systems, will come into place next November for all new vehicles, but we still have all the current ones out there that won't necessarily be making a sound. So finally, as an organisation that we are aware of what the problems are out there, and certainly through our recent research, as an organisation we have responsibility to advocate appropriately for our stakeholders, and we need to let you know that these designs are not safe and not inclusive. We do need to find a safer and more functional solution, and we do need to amend the technical specifications that are currently out there saying you can do this. But more importantly, we need to do more research, and it needs to be co-designed with people who will be affected by the designs. So I hope this is the beginning of some collaboration with you all, because it needs to be done, and we would love to work with you to come up with a far better and safer, inclusive design. Thank you. I'll hand back to Susan.
Thanks, Jennifer, and a great overview of some very complex issues, and I'm sure we'll have an interesting discussion. I'm just going to very quickly sum up for the academic side of things in terms of what I see as impactful research, and this is quite broadly. As academics, I believe we can support local communities by stepping up and being heard. So that can often be on weekends, evening, and additional to other work that we are paid for. Academic research for positive change to improve people's ordinary everyday lives is really important. It mightn't seem that important, you know, how many people does this really affect? But it is, and we've clearly heard that very powerfully from Giselle and the other people that she's been advocating for, and even Nyota is making a couple of sounds there to reinforce that point. I think we, as academics, have to be willing to engage with multiple stakeholders and to work with them in different ways to assist their advocacy activities. I won't be long now, and be part of media campaigns, workshops, different meetings, all sorts of things. It's, you know, I might be surprised, but there's a lot of ways that you can be involved, and everyone's looking at Nyota now, they're not interested. No, I know. So I think it's our responsibility, yes, to respond, but also to listen and to learn. I've learned enormous amounts from Giselle over the years, and increasingly also, you know, just more recently from Jennifer's work, and so we've got a lot to learn, and then that then can spark our research acumen and our contributions. It's not just research, it's education too. We have a responsibility as teaching academics to teach our students about these issues. So no matter how big or small a project, whether it's funded or not, academic research can definitely have real-world positive impacts. And I'm appropriately going to hand over to Giselle and Nyota for the last word, and thanks, Reza. So, thank you. There's
Thank you. It's 5 p.m. or near to 5 p.m. and it's near dinner time.
Oh, no,
That's why she's telling you. And look, I want to emphasize that everything that also Susan and Jennifer said, especially about the cognitive overload, because yeah, if you can imagine what it would be like with all the issues that Jen went through, the shared zones and the footpaths and the branches and all of that. And so to imagine that you're going to pick up a tactile surface con indicator, some little bumpy dots on an already bumpy footpath. And I've got, you know, even from my place to say Summerhill, there's about 10 busy streets to cross. If I have to try and pick up, these are the tactile tiles. Oh, wait a minute, now I'm on the roadway. Oh, wait a minute, now I'm off the roadway and trying to feel my way. It's just not going to happen. As James said, you know, try and close your eyes. Try to cross one street like that. Imagine crossing all the streets and avoiding all the other obstacles. The other point I want to finish on is that you need to be work with other people. I'm aware that for some people, those flash crossings, people who are in wheelchairs and pushing strollers and everything, they might be good. But there's no conflict of interest. We all have the same objective, to be able to walk and to be able to move independently and be healthy. And so if we have the same objective, we should find a solution that is inclusive. And we should never view it as a conflict of interest. That you know, some people will benefit from this and some people will benefit of that. There has to be a universal solution. And the third point is that it takes time. You know, 14 years for one crossing, nothing like that. The women's movement, you know, with the books, you know, they started the right to vote for women. It took 70, 80 or 90 years. You know, the environmental movement, I just read a book by Anton Chekhov, the Uncle Vanya. There's a quote in there about, you know, the climate is changing, the forests are disappearing. He wrote that in 1897. So it takes time, and you have to be resolute, and you have to be positive. Thank you.
Thank you. It's very eye-opening for me as well, so thank you for sharing. Any questions from the audience?
I've got a question for you, Giselle. Sometimes the crossings that are being installed, they're not flush in terms of running out from the footpath. But what they're doing, they're keeping, I suppose, the curb and the gutter, and they're putting metal mesh out. Does that assist in any way at all?
So good question, very good question, because I had a debate with one of my neighbors about that. The crossing they're putting down has got those wire mesh. The other crossings they're proposing have got those, I think they call them gutter bridge or whatever. But they have been, no, so it's the same as the tactile. You still have to try and feel it underfoot. And because they're on both sides, then how do you know you're going from the footpath down to the roadway or from the roadway back onto the footpath? Only the up and down curb ramps at the moment, you know, tell us that. But no, the wire does not.
Just to add to that as well, the tactiles have their place, certainly in some locations. Edges of train platforms, absolutely, that's what we need to know. There's a massive drop-off coming, but there is a drop-off there as an added element to let you know something's happening. So something like once you add in something else going, hey, will this work? It hasn't been tested, it hasn't been proven, it hasn't been determined, can everybody pick that up? Consistency is the key for design, and particularly for someone who's blind, to work out what does this mean. And if that just turns up, it's like, what does it mean? You know, it's at this crossing, but it's not at the next crossing. So again, consistent design is really the key for a lot of interpretation.
Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. It was very interesting. I have a question just around, so do you know of any kind of better practices for urban design in relation to designing for visually impaired people? And like, yeah, I guess that's it. Do you know of any other examples that we could maybe emulate?
Yeah, I'll just jump in there. So it's design, and definitely, I guess, to flag to, this is something that's happening globally, and I think in Australia as well, that it was picked up from Europe, it was picked up from particularly the Scandinavian countries as well, Holland, and just brought out here. And I can tell you with our other organisations, Guide Dogs UK, RNOB, other organisations around the world, people who are blind who have low vision are having just the same issues. And it's like their voice has not been heard when it was being brought over here. And that's why I feel like we can't be quiet anymore, because we know it's a problem and we're going to advocate. So I guess in answer to your question, no, we don't know the answer, but that's why we need to do research. That's why we need to co-design. Let Australia be the beginning of it to go, hey, we've got an answer for you. You can now come back and use it around the world because we came up with it. But it takes people like Giselle, and it takes, I guess, our organisation to listen as well, and hopefully designers to listen, because we want to find the answer. We want to make sure that the community is safe.
Yeah, and it takes, not just, academics, researchers, it takes lawyers, to try and change these standards, which, I know, Jenny, you've been to the standard organization and had to fight your way, even, so then they say, oh, but the standards said that, but they've ignored us when we try to change the standards, so we need a lot of support. We need a psychologist to understand the relationship between, health and walking, for example. And we need, for example, I had an argument with one of my friends who was saying, but I see, so she saw the tactile bond and she said, and they're yellow, and if I put my foot on it, I can feel it. I said, okay, now close your eyes and walk with me. And let me guide us. And she skipped she strided over the tactiles, and then she turned around, she said, I never felt that. I said, because you saw it, and you felt that I could feel it because you saw it. It doesn't work like that. Your senses don't work like that.
Not so much on that particular design issue, but just thinking about health and well-being more broadly. I think, we've also got to consider the issues that are going to be increasingly faced, particularly by older people, people who are fearful of going for a walk because of the fast e-scooters and unpredictable movement on the footpath that then may cause an accident for them. Recently I marked a PhD from New Zealand that was looking at a big problem that they have with mobility devices, the e-devices, and people making those decisions, I'm not going to go out walking anymore. And not only is that really detrimental to physical health and a risk factor for diseases like heart disease, diabetes, many cancers, it's incredibly problematic for our mental health, and as we know very much from COVID. So, and those sorts of things cost governments enormous amounts of money. So we've got to, I think, importantly bring that into the discussion. It's not to say we don't have the mobility devices, and there's a lot of really fantastic sustainability arguments for those vehicles. But we've also got to think, we've got to think more broadly. And I think the point that Giselle made, what is the objective here? It's not about, that group versus that group. It's about what is our holistic objective and how can we work towards achieving that in an inclusive and equitable society.
Sure. I guess just like building off that too, I feel like this is more of a comment than a question, but I think this all just highlights the kind of question of who gets to participate in these design conversations, because obviously like everyone has said, co-design is something that's very well like everyone knows the importance of it nowadays, but as we all just learned in this presentation, evidently some co-design involves, you know, probably wheelchair users more than vision impaired people, and or even I noticed when we showed the photos of the stakeholder workshop that everyone there had grey hair, you know, like, well, but I'm pretty sure that, like, from the survey that you showed, it's not like there's no vision impaired young people. There are definitely plenty, but, you know, why don't they necessarily get to participate? Yeah.
Any more questions? If I can have one question from me. So in terms of updating the Australian standard, so what is the progress in this particular aspect, and is there any involvement from people who will be affected by this standard?
The Australian standards. So amending Australian standards, particularly that clause. Thankfully, I don't know if it's thankfully, I do sit on the Australian standards, the suite of ME64, which is the disability ones. They're open to the amendment to put something in, but what do we say? You know, what is it that the clause gets changed to? Do we just say no, or do we say under certain situations? Is it a light controlled? Is it like the continuous footpath currently is only meant to be like a T intersection, so that you're crossing a side road. But as you saw from the example that's happening in George Street, that clause of showing the flush finish has proliferated into something that's so dangerous because of the way it's written. So I think it's more about getting the right words, getting it done soon, but also I'm sure that you're very aware of the Australian standards. We might be able to change the standard, but in order for it to get adopted in the construction code or whatever, that takes years as well. But we've got to start now. We've got to start doing something. And again, if we've got research behind us to say this is what we think will work and this is what should be in there, then that's what we need to do.
Thank you. Any questions? No? All good? Okay, if that's the case, then again, thank you, Susan, Giselle, and Jennifer. Please give them a warm thank you. So we end our session here, but then we still have a wonderful summer refreshment.
Thank you, Reza,
Yes.
to your wonderful organising team. Came in was fantastic, and thank you so much for all the technical assistance, and that all is very, very important. So thanks.
I want to especially thank the faculty and Susan and of course Jennifer and every one of you, but Susan in particular, because for this 1 hour presentation, I know that Susan spent many hours and weeks and months of preparations, and you know, changing this, changing that, talking to me, talking to Jennifer, talking to the faculty, and it was amazing. So thank you, Susan, for your support.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thanks all.
And please stay back. We do have some refreshment and we can talk more concerning this. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Milton.